Hello, and welcome to all of you that have come to join us on this first episode of Rabbit Holes. Obviously, I have in the studio with me someone who's been a part of the round table for a long time. He's been absent for a while. Life has been busy for him. He is Tall Tree. And before we start, I'll give you a little bit of introduction to Tall Tree. Tall Tree is very inspired by shamanic culture and nature. He's a military man as well, so he's no stranger to discipline. He's a father. He's also a researcher. He's deeply embedded within his martial arts and his disciplines, which obviously relate to the spiritual disciplines as well. He's also connected to and involved with different groups and been practicing his spiritual ascetic practices now for some time. But more than that, he's a lovely human being that's grounded, real, and it's an honor to be here with you. Dear brother Jeremy, please tell us a little bit about yourself that I've missed out. I think I've probably missed out loads.
No, you're good. It's good to be back. I'm glad we're doing these talks again. I think so. I'm not that disciplined, but I do. So I do work out pretty consistently, and I have for years. And it, like, if you can just do one or two things, very daily, like consistently, you'll get you'll get good at it. You'll get good at something. You know what I mean? If you know, so I'm stumbling around here. It's early in the morning, but I didn't start really working out with like any type of goal. I just wanted to be stronger and stay fit. Like, coming out of the Marines and stuff like that, I had a pretty good basis for fitness, and I just wanted to keep that going. And eventually it like kind of morphed into like, well, I need to stay able-bodied for my children, and all that. But I didn't follow any real program or diet regime or anything like that. I just started doing some really basic stuff, but I stayed very consistent with it, and I've done it for years, and I got a lot stronger that way. So just yeah, just have one or two things in your life that you do very consistently. I mean, like even just like reading or meditation or contemplation or something like that, and it'll go a long ways for you.
Yeah, brother, you're not at all disciplined, but like he's been up since 6 a.m. to do this podcast. So we'll see.
I've been up since 4 because I had to put someone back to bed. But yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of being a parent. You have no choice but to be disciplined, and the discipline comes.
Yeah,
it's like being in the military.
Yeah, no, I like the routine, and I like being a provider and a caregiver, because they're all the children, kids. They're just 100% dependent on you, and you as the parent, you gotta set the routine, and you gotta do it in a way that's like gonna benefit the child. But anyways, we can talk for hours on that stuff. But what I wanted to, so previously our conversations were about you specifically and your life journey, and I think we did a pretty good job covering that. And so now what I wanted to talk about is just anything and everything. And so recently I was listening to a podcast, and the gentleman was a researcher, and he had done. I think you wrote a book too, but he had done. Been doing a lot of research on the Aztecs and the story of the Aztecs, and um, one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me was that the Aztecs actually they migrated from um, the what's now the United States, I guess the southwestern or area of the United States. I might be getting that wrong, but they migrated down from the United States into Mexico, what's now Mexico. Um, and they were kind of like this wandering, nomadic, lost tribe of people that were known to be, I guess, kind of like warlike and brutal. And they went around to the different, uh, the different tribes or nations down there, and they finally were allowed to settle in a certain area, which is now Mexico City, by the kingdom that was down there back then. Um, and they founded a city called was it called Tenochtitlan or something like that. I'm butchering that. But what stood out to me is that they had their god with them, and I think it was like literally like an artifact, like a statue or something that was like wrapped up and carried by their holy men. They brought this thing around with them from uh, from the southwestern United States, that area, and they brought that down with them. Um, and I know that it and definitely in the Mississippi Valley and all up, the southern United States, up, up the eastern coast and stuff like that. There was a culture, a very ancient culture that built these huge mound complexes, and they built, like these step pyramids, very similar to what you see in ancient Mexico. And apparently the pyramids down there in Mexico were not even built by the Aztecs or the Mayans. Yeah, there you go. And so that kind of points directly to this ancient culture that was down there, before the Aztecs. And so what stood out to me is that one of the things that stood out to me is that, like, these Aztecs, they were up where the United States was. They had their god. They came down, and because they were so brutal, and uh they were like listening to the messages of their god. Their god was speaking to them directly, through the holy men, and basically kind of like directing them on what to do. They were able to build this incredible empire. And what was this, what was this god? And I have this idea that, like, it was this god is this, it's this spirit. Maybe maybe it was, maybe it's this spirit that they got or discovered somehow, or attach itself to these people, from the land that they were in before they came down into Mexico. And somehow it decided that these people were the people to, carry out, I don't know, carry out its bidding. um there's all these stories there's stories of ancient Native Americans like going to war with these giants, and the giants point directly to, what's been called Nephilim. Fallen angels come down, mate with, women of the earth, create basically demigod great men, giants, that run around and rule the earth, you know, for so long. Are these Nephilim? Are these demigods the ones that built the ancient step pyramids in the mounds? And was there some sort of ancient war that destroyed these civilizations, leaving behind, their infrastructure? Were the Aztecs and the Maya, and the Olmecs, were those like the remnants of those destroyed civilizations pushed out in a diaspora across the Americas? And was this this god that the Aztecs were carrying around with them, was that like this disembodied spirit of, one of these fallen angels that they were able to discover, or that, that entity attached itself to these certain people, and they were able to, somehow hold it in an object, and speak to it and bring it down with them. Because you look at the Aztecs, like their culture, especially their practices, their holy practices around blood, and the removal of it from bodies, like with the heart. Like they built these, sacrificial areas on top of these step pyramids, which apparently weren't even theirs. They just built upon them, which, you do any kind of research, is a very, very, it's a very ancient practice to layer, culture's holy sites on top of each other, because there's obviously a power within that spot. And so they had these, they had these temples on top of temples, and inside, these temples on top of the step pyramids were, uh sculptures of gods, these Aztec gods, and, I guess there was like, blood everywhere, heart offerings, of the hearts. And these priests, I guess, were just tripping on psilocybin mushrooms, like, all the time. And I remember reading about this, and just thinking about how in, how how intense it would be to, you know you've ingested probably just, buckets of mushrooms. You're in communication with these gods, and you're actively, carving hearts out of human bodies, um and offering the blood and the hearts and the body and and the blood, to the gods, to your people. um that's like peak spiritual religious experience. um it's like you're not even like a person anymore. You're just this pure conduit carrying out your god's direction. um and so it just made me think about like what was this, what was this this god that the Aztecs carried down with them? Like, where did it come from? And why was it, I guess, demanding all this human life force and blood, and what is what is it with the blood? Like I know there's significance of blood, but like I wanted your what you had to say about it.
Well, dear brother, um, yeah, I'm not sure what my thoughts are completely, but what I have come to understand is that there's I need to backtrack a moment. I mean, there are fundamental issues with academic science, right? Newton and a lot of them had to do away with ether, right? Because it was inconvenient. And then we built all these colliders and they rediscovered ether, but they didn't have the integrity to say, okay, we were wrong for 200 years. Ether exists. So they had to rename the same thing as a Higgs field, as a quantum field, talk about the activities of the Higgs and quantum field as if it's quantum entanglement. But the descriptions of what these things are pretty much what the ancient Greeks were describing when they were talking about ether. So we've rediscovered ether. They did away with it. So that's been like 200 years of obfuscation for physics. Now, we've noticed there's a lot of evidence of cover-ups with ancient history. The newspaper evidence is there. The books are written by the academics. There are papers that have been published and written by top archaeologists and anthropologists from 200 years ago all over the Americas with photographic evidence, with sometimes in some situations receipts, where the bones were found. They come and get picked up, they get taken away, they're not seen again. A later stage, or nobody knows what bones. There's a lot of evidence that's been covered up, especially around the giants, and there's a lot of stories about the giants in every different culture all around the world. I'd say it's a coincidence if there was 3 or 4 cultures, but it's universal, all the way from India to the North to Europe to to China to the North Americas, the South Americas, the Australias, New Zealand, the islands. And they speak about these giant people and that there were 2 different groups of giants. There was one particular group of giants that had red hair. I mentioned it in the last round table. There's this famous cave. I can't think of the name of the cave offhand. What was the name of the cave? I might have it on my phone. Where they found giant sandals and a giant coffin and red hair and giant clothes. And of course, it was taken away. Apparently, the giant coffin with all the things are as little as 10 to 20 years ago was in a building where there was asbestos, so no one could access it. That was the latest news. So, for some reason, the truth's not allowed to get out there. I think there are hundreds of thousands of artifacts that we're not allowed to know about. At least some people say as many as 1 million that are hidden from humanity, which is incredible if you think about it. Many of them from Americas. So I think there's a lot of evidence in the Americas of an ancient culture. And I think that our anthropologists are just sort of assuming that this was just human ritual sacrifice. It's an assumption based upon a small amount of evidence that people can't quite equate to. Now, I'm going to step this back a moment. What do we do when people slaughter an animal? Do we have a religious ceremony? Well, we used to, right? The Jews, the Christians, the Muslims. There's a particular technique of slaughter. There's a particular slaughtering place. And there's prayers and invocations done. It's done ritualistically in order to purify the kill or the animal. So how do we know that there wasn't a race of giants that were eating humans and ritualistically slaughtering humans the way we would livestock? And that all the evidence that we're finding is from a society that was eating humans, because there's enough there are enough stories from every different culture to indicate that there were times when there were giants eating humans. In fact, there's a particular story in the Americas about where there were two Indian tribes that were warring over a particular territory, and the giants with the red hair were actually going onto the battlefields and eating the fallen. And what happened was it actually brought all the American tribes of the indigenous tribes together, and they went and they slew all the giants. So these indigenous stories, I think we've got to give them some credence, because it's not like there's one or two or three. It's universal. Every tribe's got the same stories, and it's from the South Americas to the North Americas. Yeah.
It's not even like, so, God, what was it in Patagonia? Like when explorers, European explorers went to Patagonia, the reports that were that the Patagonians were enormous people, like much. I know the Europeans were short, little guys, but we're talking like 7, 8, 9 feet tall, like tall, way much taller than what would be even considered normal now. Like I'm 6'2", and I think also in the explorers that landed in Florida and in that southern area of the United States were also reporting that the Native Americans were pretty large there too.
Yeah, exactly. So there's actually evidence. The genetic record, I think, is quite a lot of evidence. The fact that everybody's large means there must have at some point been even larger people that maybe bred in with, the usual herd, and the herd got bigger. If you've got a whole lot of dogs and you bring in a couple of big dogs and breed them in, slowly all the dogs will get bigger. Breeders know this. They can breed bigger dogs like this. So, if they were like that tall, imagine how tall their ancient ancestors could have been. They could have been 10, 11 feet tall. Who knows? So, so that's just a prefix to where I'm looking at this from. I don't trust the anthropologists. I noticed as well that they like to separate everything, right? They want us to believe that the Aztec Empire has nothing to do with the Incas, right? And the Mayans. I'm wondering, how reliable is this? How reliable is the story? It seems to me that there's this global empire, and we're looking at a global empire that maybe spanned not hundreds of years, but thousands of years, right? A highly sophisticated and advanced empire that had no reason to collapse. And this advanced empire, there might be some history of it available here from that area, and there might be some history of that ancient empire available here. Who's to say that that global empire wasn't around? According to the Vedas, this global empire of the Bharat was a spanning the whole world empire, and that there were different nations or different cultures within that empire, different groups, different ethnologies within the empire, and that the empire was a highly advanced society that had vimanas and flying machines and all sorts of interesting technology, was able to travel to other lokas, other worlds, had incredible enlightenment, good ethics and laws that were better than the ones that had been inherited, and they didn't have war, but then wars came. So we look at, and this is a repetitive story that we see throughout many cultures. And we've got these stories of Lemuria and Atlantis, and it's the same ideas. The Egyptians kept pretty similar records, and we see the Mesoamericans and the North Americans and all the Americans seem to be telling the same stories, and we have the evidence in the stone and in the bones. It's interesting. Like, I think that there's more of a connection between all of these different cultures that they are trying to separate, the same way that they want to separate Paleo-Hebrew from Phoenician, from other Semitic languages, from Coptic and Egyptian languages, from the Irish and the Gaelic languages, and when we start to look, we start noticing there's similarities, and with the Greek, there's similarities. So there's more similarities between languages than there are differences. And they want us to separate them all. Like, no, that's that era, that time. Like the same as now, right? Like American English is not the same as British English. And if you go to China, they're going to have different English. You go to India, they spell the English differently. They speak the English differently. They pronounce it differently. And then that's just this small little chapter of an era. Then you go back 100 years, English looked and sounded different. Go back 200 years, English looked and sounded very different. If you go back 300 years and compare the English to what we're speaking now, it's so different, it's almost madness to compare the two as a single language. How long will it be that they start telling us that Old English has got nothing to do with modern English, having renamed Old English into a new language to obfuscate it? There seems to be this goal to create as much complication. And I think that complication is set up because of the way that the systems are developed, the education systems, which is to do with PhDs and doctorates, and the organizations that set up and fund these organizations and control education systems. So to me, like I look at this, for example, I'd like to bring this up for a moment. There's this Buga Sphere that has recently come up.
Yeah.
And
hey, real quick, I hear my little one running around. Let's pause. I'm gonna go set her up with some breakfast, and so she can chill out while we talk. So let's just pause.
Sweet brother.
Okay.
Sweet
right,
brother. Big
I'll
love.
be right back.
Yeah. So the Buga Sphere has been looked at and dated, and it's very interesting because when we look at this story, there's going to be a lot of information across the web, right? And I'm always very curious when I see people using words like allegedly, and so anyway, this Buga Sphere was taken by the University of Georgia to their laboratories, and they were dated. And the dating method was radiocarbon dating. And there was resin inside the sphere that was found by scientists using the scientific method that dates back to approximately 12,560 years. So we're talking about more 10,500 BC.
Okay.
And that's validated by the University of Georgia. And for those of you that are interested, the scientists that were part of the team of scientists was Alex Jokinski, Carla S. Hayden, Ilya Zazovskaya, and Gurazada Ravi Prasad. And these are all legitimate scientists. You can go and look them up. So, you're going to hear stories about this. Now, this was found in Bolivia. Now, we've got Inca history in the Bolivias. And they also built some interesting pyramids, didn't they? They also built some interesting structures.
Oh, yeah.
And right up to Guatemala, there's this whole region. Like, look, yeah. So here we've got another one.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's Guatemala. Then here we've got in Bolivia, right? Highly advanced ancient construction. It's reminiscent of the kind of work that we see in the Mayas and in the Incas, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They were advanced. Here we've got also in Bolivia, there are pyramids that have been scanned inside these mounds. So these are very, very ancient places with very ancient, very ancient legacy. And to me, I'm seeing like a connection. And I'm thinking and by the way, this Buga Sphere has been looked at by a number of linguists, obviously expert linguists, and their expert opinions are that it's a Proto-Sanskrit language. So suddenly the Vedas, talking about this ancient culture that spanned the world, right? And finding this information in the Mayas means that there must have been trade, right?
Mhm.
Between the Vedic people and the people of the Americas, because we've got the evidence of trade here, and it's 12,500 years old. And this is actually in alignment with the dates of the Vedas,
Yeah.
which have been contested heavily by many anthropologists. Well, now they're going to have a little bit of a problem maintaining their allegedly, because now we've got the evidence is being uncovered. And so, yeah, when you ask me about that, I think that there were giants. I think that there were ancient cultures. Whether it was a religious sacrifice purely, which it may well be, and I'm not saying that, refuting that outright. I'm just adding, well, we're assuming that it's just religious. Maybe they were eating them, because there's a lot of stories about the giants eating the humans, and humans actually banding together to fight a war to stop it. And there's evidence in some islands as well where they found the same story, like religious mounds of bones, and the same story in islands. All the islanders banded together in big groups, went and fought a war, as you do, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a group of giants preying on you, and obviously they take the children and they take the older people, and you feel like, no, this isn't on, right?
Yeah.
So you all get together and you go and do what has to be done. That's the human way, right?
So the Aztecs did they did cannibalize other humans too. That was part of the practice, especially with war captives and you know, and so on and so forth. So that practice from the alleged practice from the giants eating people was carried on to these other people that were not giants.
Well, I'm thinking that the humans are the giants, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that like they're interbred, like the stories of the Nephilim,
right?
And the interbreeding, like you say, some of these American tribes were very big people.
Yeah.
And that speaks genetically to a past of mixing your genetics with very big people.
Right.
So I think that like we are the giants. Probably we all carry some giant genes in us to a varying degree. You might have some giant genes in you that makes you 6'2", right? Some people have them 6'7".
Yeah.
I might
I'm just
have
American.
some giant.
That's probably what it is.
Well, I might have some giant genes in me that makes my bones extra hard and
for sure.
solid and dense, more than they should be, like compacted. So I don't know, like I'm not discounting that we are the giants.
Yeah.
Mixed in with everybody else. But that's very interesting what you point out, and it's quite interesting as well when we start to look at the histories that have come since, right? The way in which we've been sort of, look at the lengths that the American governments have gone to make sure that the native people lost their culture, lost their memory, lost their language, right?
Yeah.
They must have been afraid of something. Why did they have to take their language away?
Yeah, so Native American history is something I've delved into quite a bit, and it was it was a pretty brutal existence, in a lot of ways. Not all Native American tribes were were as brutal as, say, like the Plains tribes and the Comanches and stuff like that. But I like there's a lot of there's a lot of just absolutely fascinating history with, the westward the westward expansion of, the Europeans landing on the American continent, and even just like just getting here in the first place. Like with the first Europeans coming over. I just I'm it's absolutely fascinating that at one point in American history, the entire like east of the Mississippi was just endless forest. It was just endless forest all the way to the coast. Like that just blows my mind because because now, obviously it's all cut down now. It's all, agriculture and stuff like that. And the biggest patches of forest are going to be found out west. And there's some, you know, it, I was living in New York, and I went up on a camping trip. Actually, it was a hunting trip um, to the Adirondacks in northern New York. And now that's a giant area. You can definitely go places where there's not going to be any people around for a long time. And we went to this campsite. We hiked in. It wasn't like completely isolated. There were still people around, but far and few in between. And man, just the feel of it up there was. I had a hard time sleeping the first night, but the second night, oh my god, very very deep, calm sleep. And there's far less electromagnetic interference from power lines and buildings, and all the technology and stuff like that. And I was just there for a short time, but I could feel my body start to revitalize. And I distinctly remember driving back to the city where I was living, and it was almost like uh, the energy in my chest was starting was as closer I got back to civilization, everything just started to go like that. But anyways, uh, I I I just love thinking about that first ship coming over, and they would sail up the rivers, and I can't imagine what it'd be like just to sail up these rivers and look and just see nothing but endless, American old growth forest, trees, just hundreds, maybe thousands of years old, like ancient, chestnuts. And if you to the audience, if you haven't, look up ancient American chestnuts. Like you could build a house in the middle of these trees. Is fascinating. Um, okay, now she's running around. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. So I was beginning to comment on what you said about the American government being possibly afraid of these Native Americans. And it basically, you know at a certain point, the idea was always conquest. It was the European push into the Americas was like it was never going to stop, and it wasn't going to be like, you know oh, let's make friends and integrate ourselves into these Native American nations and stuff like that. Like I think from the beginning, the royalty and the merchants and the people with money that were pushing people to the continent were like how much lumber is there, and how many beaver pelts, and like there's buffalo, there's millions of buffalo, and like, all right, well, we gotta extract, we gotta get this lumber overseas and stuff like that. So
There's also a story about the bison.
Huh?
There's all these unexplained mounds of bison bones that no one could have hunted them at such a rate. Almost like somebody went out to exterminate the bison.
Well,
And
there.
like the evidence shows that they all, the rate at which they were taken out, like, they can literally go and look at it and go, well, all of these were basically just executed in like the same month, but like hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
in the same spot.
Yeah.
But there's no like cities around there.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that brings up an interesting. So I know there's some pretty interesting architecture, or there was in the United States. There's a specific guy, I think his name is John Levi, Jon Levi. He's got a YouTube channel. I think it's called John Levi. And I've watched a lot of his stuff, and he goes into a lot of very interesting topics. And one of his favorite things is architecture, old architecture in the United States. And like, for instance, you look at the United States government Capitol building with its dome, and it's very kind of like ancient Greek, Roman looking, pillars and all that sort of stuff. And so you find in all kinds of cities around the United States, you can find similar looking architecture. A lot of old bank, like buildings that are now banks, like in Syracuse, and even out west, like Steamboat Springs, Colorado. There's some very interesting buildings with just like absolutely megalithic, stones, carved stones and stuff like that. And so, and I know that in the mid 1900s or late 1900s, there was this push to demolish all of these absolutely huge, gorgeous, made of stone buildings all around the United States. And I mean, the way I look at it is that it was the wiping out of history, of a certain history in the United States that may point to there being a civilization here, basically before, like think about God, what was it? The Lewis and Clark expedition. Okay. Basically, there being a civilization in America that they were discovering, and that there were these buildings existed, before this, before the Europeans moved, expanded west and built up places. And so yeah, look that up.
I think like this is very interesting because this is really like an important conversation to be having. There, like you're saying, there is so much evidence that our history has been concocted, right?
Yeah.
Been meddled with.
Yeah.
And people, I think, go too far. Like I've noticed a lot of people going to say, well, all the history is just made up and it's nonsense. I think there's an element of truth to that, but I think like it's just like obfuscation, twisting, adding some lies.
Yeah.
My dad had a boxing saying, bullshit baffles brains. Just add a few details here, twist a few details around, mess it up. The whole narrative becomes scrambled so that the anthropologists will interpret it in a wrong way, right?
Right.
And then you will create this wrong narrative of history, which is largely innocent because the anthropologists are just doing what they've been taught in universities to do,
right,
in the way that they've been taught, which has also been engineered.
Yeah.
And they've been controlled by funding, corporations that say, well, we want this research done and this is what we're looking for. Can
Yeah.
you do it for us? Funding? No, you can't. Bye. We're looking for this research. This is our goal. Can you do this? No. Bye. You can do this. Good. Funding. Oh, if you play ball with us, we'll give you more funding, and you'll get your name on books, and you'll be, interviewed, and you'll have a career. If you don't play ball, your PhD is worth nothing. You can go work in Burger King,
Yeah.
And so you got a lot of scientists flipping burgers in Burger King because of this. And and just to bring that back to what you're saying, I think that the super culture that we're talking about is what we're going to be discovering. I think this Buga Sphere is really on point. Did you know, by the way, have you heard that this Buga Sphere changes gravity?
Yeah. I haven't. I remember when the Buga Sphere came or popped onto the social media feeds and stuff like that, and I looked at it a little bit, and I just kind of I wanted to wait and see what happens with it, because so earlier you were talking about it, and I said, okay, allegedly, the universities have radiocarbon dated this to some 12,000 years ago. And the reason I say that is because, well, I'm not sure I don't know the whole. I don't know if anybody knows the whole story of why our histories, are taught us in a certain way that it really seems like things are obfuscated. It seems like things are tweaked here and there to divert our attention and to just kind of give us a story that is mostly palatable, that we can live with while we work and pay taxes, and that sort of thing, and basically keep the system running. And it's like, well, like, what is this system? The system is it's control. There is a hierarchy and a pyramid in this world of control. At the top are certain families that can probably trace their lines, who knows, probably maybe all the way back to the Nephilim, to the OG great men rulers of the world that were fucking 12 feet tall and could squeeze the head of a lion like a grape or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, why do they want control? It's like, well, because they're in power. Like, you don't want to give up power once you have the power. And it's like, if you need to keep the world running to have that power, everybody's, every people like you and me, are just like, we're just seen as like these little units, these little cogs, and you're just going to extract energy from all these little cogs, and it all flows up. And that's why when you actively try to remove yourself, exit the matrix, or remove yourself from the system, there's like laws in place where you say you can't you can't harvest rainwater
or swim with whales.
Or swim with whales, or
Do
stuff
you
like
know that you get 10 years in jail for swimming with whales?
Yeah. Well,
isn't that ridiculous?
Yes and no. I could definitely see how governments wouldn't want anybody willy-nilly just kind of getting close to potentially endangered animals, or there's when people getting harmed and stuff like that. But
10 years in jail. People are allowed to bungee jump. They're allowed to skydive.
Yeah,
they're allowed to rock climb.
It's like
they're allowed to free rock climb without ropes. That's legal.
Yeah.
But if you swim with a whale, you get put in jail.
Yeah, but if you're the Chinese, you could just take that whale back to China and chop it up and sell it for $1 billion and just
Ah,
keep doing that until they're almost all gone.
there could be laws against taking whales. There could be laws against interfering with whales. I'm talking about laws against swimming within like 200 yards of a whale.
Yeah. Well, those whales are really old and they probably have a lot of stories and they don't want you to know.
I think there's a lot to it. I actually,
I've heard your
there's an
stories.
interesting concept there. I've sat on a whale before.
I know.
And my experience of being with these animals, they awaken us.
Yeah.
Like something happens when you're close to, like if you're close to orcas in the sea,
Yeah.
your consciousness shifts.
Sure.
There's some kind of a telepathy that happens between us and them.
Yeah.
I think they don't want us to discover our real connection to these creatures. We've got a more of a connection with these creatures than what we realize. There's a reason why they save us.
Yeah. Yeah. Those, I feel so like if I'm looking at Instagram and I love, and I see whales, like I definitely I feel something. I feel a pull for sure. There's something there. I mean, orcas have whales and orcas and, they have family units, they have dialects, they're animals, but they're sophisticated. They're very sophisticated, very intelligent. The dolphins are super smart and everything like that. And, they like, John Lilly. Does that ring a bell? You look up John Lilly and his work with dolphins. Now he kind of he went pretty far. But that's some fascinating stuff.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that like if we start researching these creatures and start looking at them,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't want us to recognize their language, because I think they can tell us stuff about what's under the sea. I think they can actually communicate.
Oh,
and I think if
100%.
enough people start getting close to whales and dolphins and these creatures, we might start learning stuff that we're not supposed to know about underneath the sea, super cultures like cities.
Sure.
And I've been aching to point this out to people. I want people to know that you're going to hear a lot of bogus nonsense about the Buga Spheres, and it's really important, right? So there is empirical validation of unified anomalous physics around the Buga Sphere. This is not some allegedly. This is Patrick Morsilla. He's a researcher. He's a scientist. This is at SSRN. Look it up. It's a legit place for physicists and scientists to put their scientific papers.
Yeah.
And it's not just some random person coming up with conspiracy theories. And the empirical data that's been recovered by researching this artifact has been quantitatively measured. And there are paradoxical phenomenon. It has a drastic apparent mass shift of up to 8.1 kilograms. It's generated silently, non-ejective propulsion, and sustained 100 watts of endothermic signature of electricity that has been measured in laboratories, right? This is basically some kind of technology that can influence mass. And just so that there's also papers in ResearchGate, right? ResearchGate, another place where physicists and scientists, and here they're talking about the same thing, right? So this isn't just somebody that has impersonated someone. These are legitimate scientists that are basically looking at it. It has been carbon dated by the University of Georgia itself, not just the University of Georgia, but also the Autonomous University of Mexico and the University of Georgia have both dated this, right? Separate laboratories.
Yeah.
They've dated it and they've come up with the date, and they took resin from the inside. So they got the sphere, they opened it up. They found resin inside it. old resin. Then they've observed in other scientific laboratories that this thing has a kind of a quantum field generation from inside, technology that we do not understand. It's able to change its mass by 8.1 kilograms. That's a massive effect. And it does that with 100 watts of electricity. 100 watts is not a lot of electricity.
So
right?
they apply electricity to it?
No, it generates electricity from within itself.
What did they find when they opened it up? Just hollow?
No, it's technology.
Right, I understand it's technology, but like you said, they opened it up and found resin. So I
They
assume
opened it up, they found resin, there's circuits in there.
Okay, so
But circuits we don't understand.
Are there any pictures
Technology
of
that
them?
we don't. Yeah.
Are there any pictures of it open?
They haven't. No. This is the research.
Okay.
They haven't provided these pictures because these are research papers, and research papers don't carry those pictures with them. These are the researchers that have done the research in the labs. The same as there's not pictures of the carbon dating, but the university claims that it's carbon dated it. Two separate universities. So it's just very interesting that we've got these research papers coming out and we've got these carbon dating evidence coming out, and I think that this is the one of the smoking guns that we've been sort of expecting that would arise, that connects the East to the West, shows us an ancient culture. And I think that this is why they've been lying to us. Does that make sense to you? Like, this is the question that people always ask. Why would they lie to us about our ancient history? Why would they want to suppress the Native Americans' cultural history? Because they know the history of ancient cultures, and their own stories speak of how great their ancestors were and the great knowledge and magic and technology, when they describe it, their ancestors had. And we pass it off as just myth, because we get to pass it off as myth because we took their knowledge away. And why was that done? Well, if we look deeper, it points towards an ancient culture that spanned the world. So now suddenly we can start to think, well, the people that were building in ancient India and ancient Egypt and ancient Bolivia and ancient Mexico and Americas, there must have been some global culture. Likely, it's more likely now that there was, since we're getting Proto-Sanskrit language, which has been found in the sphere, that points towards trade, right? The same as, like, imagine in the future, they will find Chinese writing on microchips in America, right?
Oh, you already do.
No, but I mean, 100 years, 200 years from now, 500 years, if the culture collapses and the anthropologists come and research, they will find evidence in South Africa of American goods. They will find evidence in America of Chinese goods. And that will be able to explain that there was a global culture of trade. Right? So we're finding the evidence now of global cultures of trade from the ancient world and high-level technology, and that this thing might have been some kind of an aerial drone. And now this gets really interesting. What are all these spheres that people see?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I lived in Fort Collins before that. No. Shit. 2 years ago. 2 years ago I was in Fort Collins. And I was friends with a guy out there, and he showed me this video of 4 spherical UFOs, basically looking like that Buga Sphere looking thing, a lot bigger though. And that was in 2023. So I was in Fort Collins in 2023, and he waited until the next year. He waited till the next year to show me this video. But sure as shit, it's broad daylight. It's in the middle of the day. He's in his backyard and he's taking pictures of these things. and they move. There's like two here, and there's two behind, and then one kind of like it doesn't shoot off, but it moves in a different way away from the rest. But they're kind of like just moving in this group overhead, and it's not, and they're they're a few hundred feet in the air, but they're like right there. They're it's not like it's way up there, or they're like right there. I'm sure many other people saw them, but it is the same sphere uh, that people have been seeing all around the world for a while now, and it makes them it just I think that things like the Buga Sphere, those have probably already been found. The Buga Sphere you're talking about is not the only one. So that those have been found, those have been captured, taken apart, researched, and backwards re-engineered, and now American governments or secret special access programs are operating these things, and it doesn't like we're never gonna no one's gonna like capture one of those, so they don't care whether they fly them around or not. So that's one idea. Or the other idea is that these Buga spheres are just popping up by themselves, and running around uninhibited. And there's nothing that there's nothing that governments can do because I don't know, maybe they if they try to get near one, it just in a blink of an eye is 1,000 miles away. There was recently a video released that allegedly shows a Tic Tac UFO captured by, I don't know, like an F-35 or something. And I think it's the American Navy shoots a Hellfire missile at this Tic Tac moving over the ocean or whatever, and the Hellfire impacts it and just it blows up, but it doesn't, the Tic Tac doesn't move, it doesn't shiver, it doesn't explode, it just keeps going. That's kind of terrifying. So you can throw a missile that'll pretty much take out anything, and it just glances off this Tic Tac. And it's already been shown that in I think other videos that the Tic Tac is what is it called, transmedium, where it can go from air to water, and it's like there's no splash or nothing. It effortlessly moves between mediums. So it's almost like it's not even, there's a field around it that is like extra dimensional. And to me, I'm like, oh, that thing could probably just fly through anything, which isn't great because it's like a weapon. Anyways.
I think that's a really interesting point that you mentioned there. Like extra dimensional. I think we've got a very limited idea of what dimensionality is,
or what it looks like.
And our concept of this is, I think, something that is open to being researched more.
Yeah.
And just getting back to this one, I noticed something very interesting in this research paper. So it's got its own sustained 100-watt endothermic signature, and it's mutually contradictory with any known physical or engineering framework, citing the Buga Sphere data source. This paper resolves this paradox by proposing a unified cyber physical model. We demonstrate that the sphere's anomalies are the product of two inseparable components: a physical network of engineered inclusions generating a microscopic negative mass effect whose behavior is governed by the axiom of topotemporal reality. So this is what these guys, and Secondly, an advanced photonic neural control system. Photonic neural control system. I want us to just digest that for a moment. So that's
okay.
from
So
this
you're
paper.
hold on real quick before I lose this thought.
Yeah.
Because right before you said photonic neural whatever, I thought about if anyone's tried to do any sort of like remote viewing having to do with the sphere. You know what I mean? Because I from the stories I've heard, so I've tried to listen to a lot about remote viewing, and there's been a couple stories where a remote viewer will be viewing something somewhere, and they will encounter another remote viewer's avatar, and they'll almost go to it's almost like as if they'll fight. And if the remote viewer's avatar is powerful enough, it can basically push your avatar back into your body. You'll kind of snap out of it. And so I wonder if there's, because it's like, okay, what's the purpose of this thing? And I've heard that, your thoughts and emotions can affect how a machine works. So has anybody tried to interface with this sphere, on what the astral level?
That's a really good question. I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I wonder whether so I actually have an experience with a sphere, but I'm talking about I could have stood up and touched it with my finger.
Okay. Are you talking about a sphere or are you talking about an orb of light?
A sphere that's an orb of light about that size.
Okay. So, okay.
Bright.
Yeah.
Imagine like a floating lamppost.
Okay.
In a forest.
Yeah. I saw an orb in California once. Yeah.
That moves towards you and hovers above you.
Yeah. Risky.
And just hovers there.
Yeah.
And we were sitting on the ground. It was getting dark. It was getting really dark. We were in the forest atop of Croydon. There's a forest on the hill by Croydon, for those that know London, outside of London, Croydon. And it's the King's grounds. And we were in this forest, quite high up in the forest, and I watched this orb from far. Well, I didn't know what it was. A light. I thought it was someone with a torch or a lantern.
Yeah.
Bobbing and bobbing and bobbing and bobbing and bobbing. And I saw it coming up the hill, and we were talking. Okay, oh, they're coming our way.
Isn't that called will-o'-the-wisp or something like that? Like that's like a the light like that. Isn't it like a fairy, like a fairy thing?
Will-o'-the-wisp.
Yeah.
They call it a will-o'-the-wisp.
Yeah.
But this thing came up and up and up, and it hovered above us.
Yeah.
If I had stood up, I could have touched it with my finger.
Yeah.
I had two women with me, my ex-girlfriend and another close friend, and they were behind me and they were hugging me, and they were like, the one was starting to cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's dark. It's nighttime. They know they're safe because they're with me.
Yeah.
Right? It's getting dark. It's not completely pitch dark yet, but it's getting dark. You know when it's getting dark to the point where you can still just see,
yeah,
but it's not totally dark.
Right.
And we were going to leave, and we'd watch the sunset. And then we'd come into this forest, and we'd sat down in this beautiful place. And we decided we were going to roll a special cigarette that's not nicotine. And so I was there trying to roll this special cigarette that's not nicotine in the dark.
Right.
With these two ladies standing behind me, and these things, and we're talking about it coming up.
Yeah.
And they were like, I wonder if it's like the fuzz, And
so
I'm like,
you're struggling. You're struggling in the dark. You're like, God, shit, I can't see what I'm. You're like, hey, orb, get over here. It's like, oh, thanks.
No, yeah. So the orb rocks up right on top of us. And these, like, my girlfriend, she was pretty hard. I
Yeah.
said to her, don't worry. Don't, just sit behind me. Just relax.
Yeah.
And the other one was, she was
Smoke
like,
some of
oh
this.
my God. Ah, what is that? Ah, Franklin. Oh, what is that? I was like, just calm down. Just calm down, Jessica. Just relax. Just calm down.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just hovered above us and it was rotating. And it was about this size,
Okay.
about that size. But it was bright. Suddenly, I was like, there, like, you make a joke about it. I was like, well, I cracked a joke. I said, well, at least now I can see what I'm doing. And I was able to finish the split. I was like, well, it's, yeah, it's like, and then
Yeah.
they started to calm down. I said, don't worry, it's not going to do anything to us.
Yeah.
I'm not, and because I was so chilled out about it, I made like a couple of jokes about it, and I was like, ah, you know, what's the end of the world? Like, what's the big deal? It's just a glowing ball. It's just, think of it as something funky. And so I was able to finish rolling this number. And then I was like making jokes. I was like, no, man, like this, I asked for a light, the light came. When I'm done, it will go. And then I finished and then it left. And I was like, you see, it was just, I couldn't do this in the dark. I needed a bit of help.
Yeah.
But anyway, it then bobbed all the way down and we watched it going down the hill. And to this day, I never had any idea what it was.
Yeah.
Now, you present two, and it happens to be the same size as the Buga Sphere, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting. I wonder whether both of your scenarios are true.
Mm-hmm.
I think they exist naturally, and they awaken every once in a while to come out and patrol. There must be part of some old AI system that every once in a while. But I think that, like you say, like governments would have seen these decades ago and thought, "Ooh, we got to get us one," and they
Because
found
we
a way to
cannot
get hold of
have,
one.
because they look, it's about control. It's about power and control. Okay. They cannot have silver groups of silver orbs flying willy-nilly around their airspace and not, you know, try to capture one, and, you know, once they capture it, secret access program, break it apart, figure out what's inside, oh, let's try to build one, weaponize it.
So I think both scenarios are likely true.
Yeah.
And where did they get it from? They're already here. They come from inside the earth, but I'm pretty sure we've backward engineered them.
Yeah.
Because we've now got one in the public domain.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that all the others have been kept in the dark domain.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
national security, protecting military industrial corporations, where something is found, somebody's forced to sign an ND, you know,
Right.
non-disclosure certificate, and that never happened, and that's it, end of story. And they play with it for decades, figure out how to build
Right.
them. And so I think, like, I'd be very surprised if the government don't have them.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem likely.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that we're looking at some ancient evidence. And it makes me wonder, how much more evidence is there that's hidden underneath our feet?
Yeah, there's probably tons, and there's tons and tons of stuff. I guarantee it. I mean, that's why it, you know, in a lot, like, look, the ability to dig in a place like Egypt, you know, like they've been saying for, I don't know what, decades, that there's an open space in between the Sphinx's paws, and it's like either they've gone in there, they've found it, they've taken everything out, and they haven't told anybody, you know, or they're like, we're just gonna leave that alone, and no one's gonna be able to dig and actually do real research. And to point at to go back to the sphere real quick, you know, the hard science is awesome, right? And I'm gonna have to look at those papers, but they really need to have someone like you sit with that thing, you know, in a room alone and just experience it and see what you come up with. They need some sort of medium, someone that's, you know, someone that's tuned in to be around this thing. Um, you know, just to just see what happens. You know, is it a good thing? Is it pure evil? Does anybody around this thing, can they pick up these sorts of things? You know?
My sense is that what they're describing there, when they're talking about it, looks like it's got a neurological kind of a network.
Yeah.
I think that humans can interact with these things neurologically.
Yeah, because that's the next level. I mean, that's where look at what people, you know, the people directing our technological process are talking about, right? They want this inside of you. You know, they want this to be one with you, so that you just like what the fuck was Musk talking about? Neural net, you know, the neural link. You know, right? You know, just being able to,
Yeah.
you know, do the computations with your mind, so that, you know, it's just seamless for whatever I don't know, to make more money or whatever. I don't know what the hell they're trying to do with it all, but you know, that idea with this technology is not, it's not new. You know, it's not new. It's obvious, the, you know, the first uh hominid that wanted to go to war, you know, for whatever resources, that piece of land, um you know, he probably was just like, damn, I wish I could just, you know, take that guy out with my mind. You know, and maybe they, you know, there were definitely probably people that were of that capability, but I figure I kind of figure that it once you get to that level of ability, you're not trying to like take people out through with your mind. But, you know,
Yeah. So I think you're definitely onto something there, you know. Um, and I think it's got a lot to do, and the reason I mentioned the whales is because of their sonar and the dolphins and the, you know, the ochre, and my experience with animals, being able to at times interface with an animal on an unconscious level, with on but become conscious of it and be able to sort of, I don't know if the word control it is the right word, but be able to make it, you know, call it, come to you, and get it to, you know, to you at the times. Well, it's not really you doing it, it's more like the guides are facilitating it, but it's still happening between us and the creature. And I think like we can have this effects with whales and these creatures. Like when I swam with the orca, they gave me a very clear message of like, don't come too close to us. They actually spoke to me. They were like, we're busy, don't come too close to us. And they were like jumping out of the water. They were hunting. And they were
yeah,
big. They were
yeah,
huge. And they literally spoke to me, and I was like a bit overwhelmed. I was like, wow, like this is and I wasn't that close to them. I was like about, maybe at the closest, about 8 meters, 25 feet.
hmm,
But I was like far out to sea.
hmm.
And at that distance, I got really scared when they came out of the water because they were like a building. I was like, my gosh, if that thing were to fall, I actually did the math. I realized no wonder they're telling me not to get too close, because if it accidentally falls this way and it falls on me, that'll be the end of this story, because
Yeah, if they
I'm like
wanted
a
to,
half an hour swim from the coast.
yeah, if they wanted to make a snack out of you, they would have done it, and you wouldn't even known about it. But they were definitely at 25 feet. You were probably within a body's length of the pod, and, you know, if they're in hunting, you know, in hunting frenzy, or if they've got, you know, the younger, less experienced orcas with them, they didn't want you to, you know, catch a tailfin or, like you said, get squashed.
Yeah, yeah. But so it was interesting, you know, how they seem to. they communicated with me. And I've been in the jungles and the wilderness a lot, and I've had connections with elephants and connections with big snakes, but this was something different. This was like a human intelligence talking to me. I was like, what's going on here? Like, it was like an interface with a human almost. So it was different. And so I wonder whether this technology is built to be, and interestingly, what they mention is that it creates a mass variance, which they relate to a temporal field effects.
I don't know what that means.
Temporal. Well, temporal field has got to do with time, time and space.
Temporal. Okay, temporal.
So if you can create a temporal field distortion, that would explain why a missile won't affect you.
Right.
Maybe these batteries are flat, and that's why they're only making an 8.1 kilogram temporal disturbance. Maybe when the batteries are fully charged, right? They've got a bigger, not 100 watts, maybe thousands of watts that can create a temporal field around it. And they speak as well about light. So it's able to project light, this sphere. So this sphere is able to A, hover, and B, project light. You know, you're talking about these spheres that we see, you know, this thing has got, it's got everything in it. And that's according to the researchers writing the papers on it, and the university researching it to validate its age as well. So it makes me, and I'm guessing that the researchers were also part of this university research team, right? That have had access to it. Not everybody's just being given access to this device. Right. So I think like there's a lot there in this story, and you know, it makes me think about the pyramids, for example. Let's just go to the pyramid story for a second.
Permit?
You mentioned the pyramids, and I think it's like
pyramids,
valid.
Yeah.
So remember a while ago, they gave us the obfuscation saying that the ground penetrating radar wasn't reliable. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember this, but I'll take your word
this
for
is
it.
this is the official story that people are trying to say there's nothing under the pyramids.
Okay.
And the guy who runs the pyramids, the guy who's responsible, went on Joe Rogan's show, and he was trying to like debunk all this nonsense.
Okay.
And even Joe Rogan was like, no. So at least 4, right, types of scans have been used at the pyramids.
Okay.
Right? They've used muon tomography, which is cosmic rays to detect voids and internal structures. And they discovered that there was evidence of something. They used thermal imaging. This mapped out temperatures on the surface of the pyramid and underneath, and that can highlight potential voids in air currents and showing anomalies where there's differences of temperatures, which they have found anomalies in and under the pyramids. They've used ground penetrating radar, which is obviously what we've heard about. This is pulses going into the ground to create an image of it. And they've used ultrasonic testing as well, high frequency sound waves. And they have detected anomalies. Also, electrical resistivity, ERT, has also been used in the Menkaure pyramid. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types. 5 different types of testing has confirmed that there are some anomalies under and within the pyramids that we don't know about. But the debunkers have been out there, and all they will talk about is ground penetrating radar, because it hasn't been confirmed that that works. But do you see the obfuscation that we're dealing with? Your mic is off, brother.
What I immediately thought about was how oil companies find oil. So, I mean, like, think about the resource in the industry around oil. If there's anybody any industry that can tell you what's beneath the surface of the earth, it's going to be the oil industry. So whatever techniques that they're using to find oil, those are the techniques that need to be applied to the pyramids. And if they already have been applied, there's no debunking, and those results are like, hey, there's something under the pyramid, then those results are not going to be debunked.
As far as I know, a number of those types of tests are used to scan for oil. And I'm betting you that all of the technologies that we've mentioned, they use the ISP spectroscopy. They use infrared. Yep. They use elemental analysis. Okay, that's different. But two of the scans is what they use that they've already done. Right?
Yeah.
And then they've got other things that they use, which is like scanning for ferrocity, iron, and magnetism. But two of these types of scans are automatically listed as like the first main ones used. So I think like we've pretty much nailed it. They've used two of those, and they've added more different types of scans. And I'm betting that they use ground penetrating radar as well. I've heard of this. So I think we've pretty much used the technologies and the techniques that's used by the oil companies to look under the pyramids. But this obfuscation, they don't want us to see that underneath the pyramids, there's more technology and greater things to be seen under the pyramids than on top. Because, like you say, we tend to build things on top of our old settlements, right? Like I think you said in the beginning of the show. And
the old sites,
there will be an ancient city underneath that city, and a more ancient city underneath that city, and a more ancient city underneath that city. And you can probably map it back to hundreds of thousands of years if you go layer by layer.
Yeah. Well, you look at the pictures of the Sphinx when it was first encountered by anybody who could take a photograph, and it's covered in sand up to like the neck. Right. And now you look at it, and all that's been removed. So you can only imagine how much material is on top of things that have not been discovered yet surrounding that area. You know what I mean? I think we're coming up to an hour and a half here. So we should probably wrap it up. But one thing I want to talk about next is I want to go back to the land. I want to talk about the spiritual aspects of the land. Why are some areas more, I don't know, spiritually gravitational than other places? You got that mountain in India, Mount Kailash. There's all sorts of places in the United States where anomalous things occur, and so we should talk about that
next week. That sounds exciting.
All right.
Well, as always, Jeremy, it's been a total pleasure. Thank you. It's been an honor. I pray you have an absolutely lovely day. I hope all of you have enjoyed our preambling and commenting and chit chat. Sending everybody big love. Sending you big love. Blessed be to everybody. Take it easy. And yeah, till next week.
We'll see you next time.